Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how you doing? I'm your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. And tonight we are going to talk about some of the stuff that's in the fine print. I want to remind you as we get going that there are many, many ways to listen. Also, you can watch, so set the channel as a favorite, hit subscribe, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. Because if for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, you will be able to catch a replay, so just sit tight. There's no need to panic. I've got you. And in case you aren't already following on social media, you can find me over on the Twitters at Stafford Voice. Or you can simply look me up on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, the YouTubes. That's right, we're streaming live on the YouTubes as we are doing this show right now. Wherever. All you have to do is just search for the Stafford Voice and we will be there. So, as I was teasing a little earlier, before going on and before going live, I was telling you that I wanted to introduce a new segment. You could call it an introduction or a monologue, whatever fancies you. Whatever your fancy. I'm leaning towards this. I'm leaning towards calling it the bottom line. And it's basically just a thought that I've got running through my head that I want to get out and I want to share with you guys, and I feel that this is important. You know, over the weekend, if you subscribe to us on the YouTubes and you watch our vlogs, you will know that we didn't go on an adventure this weekend, and that's okay, because twice a year we do something called, we partake in something called General Conference. It's something that our church puts on, and it is roughly 10 to 12 hours of counsel from our church leaders, and we lock ourselves in the house. We basically put our seatbelts on and we hang on for dear life, because the counsel that we receive is spiritually mind-blowing. It is most of the time beyond comprehension. I sit there, I fill up pages and pages of notes. And this little monologue that I want to share with you basically comes from what I watched and observed over the weekend. So here's this. The bottom line is this. Each one of us matters. Black, white, red, yellow, male, female, whatever, we all matter. No one more than the other. Despite the history of some people and cultures, we all matter. In the eyes of the Lord, we all matter and are all loved equally. Where we go from here is all on us. Do we continue to harbor hate and distrust for those around us, or do we look at others as if they were children of God? We're all made in the image of Him, the one on high. There isn't anywhere in the scriptures that says one person is of greater value than the next. Christ humbled Himself to be born of the flesh just like you and I. The example and path was laid out before us with the instruction to love thy neighbor as we love ourselves. It's very easy to think, especially today, that we don't have value. We often question ourselves if we are good enough. And the answer is a resounding yes. No matter the struggles and trials you may find yourself in, you are good enough. Your value isn't based off the color of your skin or whatever gender you claim. The Lord has already said you're His child, and He's willing to fight for you. Has He not proven this loyalty to you? The hate and division we see comes not from Him, but from the adversary. And if you feed that monster, things can and will only get worse. This country is blessed beyond measure. But if we continue to turn our backs on Him, He will let go and let us fall. We are our own worst enemy. So, let's remember that we each matter. And that, my friends, is the bottom line. I gave some considerable thought into that throughout the weekend, all throughout Saturday and Sunday. And maybe it's because of one of the talks I got to listen to was about that very topic. And that's the main idea, the main... Oh, I don't really know how to word it. The main topic of his talk was, am I good enough? And I think wherever we look recently, we see somebody pointing at us and saying, we're not good enough. And I'm going to be truly honest. I myself feel at times like I'm not good enough. And I accept that at face value, that I'm putting those thoughts into my head, thinking that I'm not good enough. But knowing that God's got my back really motivates me to pick myself back up and get going again. I tell you what, I will link out. I will send out a link later on so you can watch or read the message that was given on that particular topic, and I think you will find it energizing. I think you will really enjoy the message that he gave us. It was I actually watched that talk twice. The first time, obviously, it was live, and the second, I watched the replay. And each time I think about it, I feel more energy come into me. I feel more important in the eyes of God. I don't feel any depression when I'm thinking that. So, and maybe I need to paint myself a watercolor of that saying or something, and something here. Let me show you. That's what I worked on over the weekend. It turned out really crappy. So, and it's my fault. I tried to rush it in the middle of some of the talks. So now that that's over and I get to study what was presented, I'll be able to really put a nice one together, and I'll probably put it on the bookshelf that I stare at the whole time I'm doing this show, and I will let myself know that yes, I do matter, and I matter greatly in the eyes of God. And I hope you feel the same way. The whole Black Lives Matter movement, look, I get it. You want us to think, you want us to know that in addition to white lives mattering, Indian lives mattering, Asian lives mattering, you want us to say that yes, even black lives matter. I get it. But admit to yourself, just for a second, and let it sink in, that you are part of all lives matter. Don't single yourself out. God doesn't care. His opinion is the only one that matters. Because eventually you will be in front of his judgment seat, and you'll have to answer that for yourself. Okay, I realized that the bottom line went a little longer than I had anticipated. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll dive into some of these topics I've got set aside for tonight. We will be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com. Some crowdfunding sites are too liberal and keep more for themselves. Even worse, if they don't like you or someone gets offended, they'll cancel your campaign. But not at RWNJ Funding. They hold true to conservative and libertarian values. Plus, they won't cave to the PC crowd. More importantly, they believe in you. RWNJFunding.com. The right cause, the right values, done right. RWNJFunding.com.
Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
And that is right. We are back. This is the Stafford Voice. I am your host, Daniel Stafford, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. Oh, man, I've got to remember all of these silly little buttons, where to push and where to click. I was doing a good job all the way up until then. I forgot to bring back the graphic of for the show, telling you that, we're done with the break. Anyway, I was doing so good up until now. That's okay. No big deal. I got this. Anyway, okay, I've got an audio clip I want to play for you. And to be completely honest, I really don't even want to, I don't even want to spend that much time on this, but unfortunately, I've got some notes on it, and when we're done, I'm done. I'm wiping my hands of it, and that's it. I'm not going to bring the topic up again. I'm sick and tired of talking about him and her, but unfortunately, tis the season to bring him up. So, without further ado, check this out.
Some evidence that he didn't legally avoided paying federal income taxes on at least almost $1 billion worth of income because of losses he attained in his businesses. Is it important now for Donald Trump to release his tax returns? Many even of his supporters, including a guy like Roger Stone, even thinks he ought to release his tax returns.
This points out one of the reasons why releasing tax returns is so bad. The New York Times writes this long story, and then somewhere around paragraph 18, they point out there was no wrongdoing. Now, people have a hard time understanding how taxes work. If Donald Trump hadn't taken those losses, he could have been sued by his investors. He could have been sued by his business partners. when I run a business, and I run a business, if I don't take advantage of the 5 deductions that are available to me, even if you think those deductions are unfair, then I violated my fiduciary duty. So I have clients, and I have clients that take losses like that, and I advise them, you have to take those losses. Otherwise, you're not doing your job.
But the very people, very people he wants to work for, when they basically fail at their jobs or their job goes away, they don't have this kind of ability. I mean, this is basically a deduction that benefits wealthy businessmen. He failed at his businesses. Those first 3 businesses were failures. And then he was able to get a tax break for that failure on the next $1 billion of income. Look, it's all legal. Should it be?
That's a good question. But it is, and it was, and we're talking about 21 years ago, and if he didn't take advantage of it, he would have been sued. And that's why maybe somebody doesn't want to put out their tax returns, because somebody will distort it that way. I mean, the reality is he's a genius. What he did was...
A genius or a con man? A genius or just New York values? Well, 20 years ago, he claimed almost $1 billion of business loss. Losses from his Atlantic City casino project. Losses from the Trump airline project. And... oh, man, we can't forget losses at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. Okay, we're talking about huge things here, people. Huge, okay? Huge. He's a great businessman. He knows business, okay? He's run and operated a business, okay? So, again, we have to note that these numbers and information came from, quote-unquote, leaked tax return documents to the New York Times. The response from the campaign, well, quote, Mr. Trump is a highly skilled businessman who has a fiduciary responsibility to his business, his family, and his employees to pay no more tax than legally required. Okay, yeah, I get that. And continues that being said, Mr. Trump has paid hundreds of millions of dollars in property taxes, sales and excise taxes, real estate taxes, city taxes, state taxes, employee taxes, and federal taxes. Great. Continuing on, Mr. Trump knows the tax code far better than anyone who has ever run for president, and he is the only one that knows how to fix it. Okay, yes. He's said that how many times? Look, I know business. I know the tax code better than anybody. I'm the only one that can fix it. That's the same mentality in Washington. So what's the fine print in all of this? Okay, admittedly, he's, quote, the candidate running against the machine. Quote, he's the candidate talking up how the system is rigged. And is the system rigged? Yes. Against who? People like Trump? No. Against people like you and I. And look, don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to devalue, see what I did there? Anything that Trump has done. He did what he had to do for himself. Now, he's admitted before that he used the system and laws in his favor with respect to filing bankruptcy. How many times? Well, we know of at least somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 7. But anyway, the weight of all of this falls on those of us in the middle class. You and I. Not those milking the welfare system. Not those uber rich who game the quote-unquote rigged system to avoid paying taxes. The fine print says that it falls on the middle class. Each and every time you look at your paycheck and notice that more and more is missing due to taxes, take a second and realize that the likes of Trump and Clinton worked the rigged machine in their favor so they didn't have to pay. Then again, maybe we're all just too ignorant to understand all of these quote-unquote loopholes. One post over at Forbes reads this, quote, "That ignorance was on display in vivid colors over the weekend. We were told that this tricky NOL, which is, oh crap, I just had it. Let me pull it up real quick. Oh. Come on. Not always prepared. Yeah. Okay. Tricky net operating losses. See, again, maybe we are ignorant to all of this. Well, we're told that this tricky NOL, net operating loss, was some sort of quote-unquote loophole that only super rich bad guys like Donald Trump get to use. We were told that this relieved him of having to pay taxes for 18 years, a laughably arbitrary, made-up number that is the tautological output of simple arithmetic and wild assumptions. And we know what happens when you assume. Okay? In fact, a net operating loss is very common in businesses. Yes, we get that. As Alan Cole of the Tax Foundation pointed out this morning, about 1 million taxpayers had an NOL, a net operating loss, in 1995, that is. Now again, this is 21 years ago. It results from business deductions exceeding business income in a particular year. Under tax rules, this law can be carried back up to 2 years and carried forward up to 20 years. If this is a loophole, what are these political reporters suggesting? That a business loss should simply be eaten by the taxpayer? That Uncle Sam should be a full partner in your profits, but not in your losses? How is that fair? We also learned that real estate depreciation, of all things, was a loophole. Could anything be more mundane and ordinary on business tax returns than depreciation deductions? Under the consumption tax base that I and virtually all conservatives support, depreciation would be supplanted by first-year full expensing, which ironically would cause net operating losses in most cases when it comes to structures. But real estate depreciation is no loophole under any theory of tax. Unquote. My thought on that is, oh well. Maybe us ignorant people should stop trying to read all the fine print to get a grasp on what's really going on. Last thing we want to do is, educate ourselves and figure out how the rich get richer, the middle class stay in the middle, and sometimes just get bumped down to the bottom tier. And how those who are stupid rich continue to keep the lower class low and uninformed voting for them. No, say it's not so. Anyway, real shortly I want to touch on Supreme Court. There were quite a few big we'll call them big cases that they were set to hear, that are scheduled to be heard soon. One of which was the request to rehear Obama's executive order on immigration. Well, get this. SCOTUS declines the request to rehear Obama's executive order on immigration. Now, this comes directly from SCOTUS blog. Okay, they always have really good stuff over there to read. If you haven't done so, I highly recommend hitting up SCOTUS blog at least once a week and finding out what is going into and coming out of the Supreme Court. They say, quote, "Among today's denials was the federal government's petition for rehearing in United States versus Texas, the challenge to an Obama administration policy that would have permitted as many as 4 million undocumented immigrants to apply for a program that would have allowed them to remain in the country and work here legally. The justices heard arguments in the case in April of this year, but in June they announced that they had deadlocked 4-4, an outcome that left in place the lower court's decision striking down the policy. In July, the Obama administration asked the court to reconsider that ruling when it has all 9 justices. The petition for rehearing was, as the federal government acknowledged in its filing, a long shot, and today the justices rejected it without comment. Bravo! You got one right, SCOTUS. Why wait for that 9th justice? Just to, tell Obama that he reached a little too far into his power bag. And anyway. That seemed like a lot. The whole, reading the fine print sometimes is taxing. It really is. I mean, who really reads that stuff anyway? I mean, when you sign up for a website, or you go out and you buy a new big purchase like a car or a house or anything like that, do you really read the fine print? Be honest. Do you really? For the most part, especially on a website, when you're reading the terms of service or the terms of agreement or whatever the hell they call them, admit it. You just roll all the way down to the screen and click, okay, I'm okay with this. You'd be surprised what's in the fine print. And lately, I've been really enjoying digging a little deeper into some of these topics to talk about. Now, when we come back from break, yes, I know it seems like we just went to break, but believe it or not, we're going to take another one. And when we come back, we're going to talk about here's the 3 things we're going to talk about when we come back. We're going to talk about 2 topics that are extremely dear and close to my heart. The first one is veterans. The second topic we're going to cover is breast cancer. And then the third thing we'll cover before we wrap it up with some Who Said That, we will handle our profiles in history. So, what were we doing? Oh yeah, we were going to go take a break. Whew. I'm telling you, man, my mind is completely mush after this weekend. Just so much still soaking in, and every now and then some of the things that were said and talked about and discussed pop back into the head, and my mind just says, nope, we got to think about okay, we're done. Sorry if I'm a little scatterbrained tonight. Anyway, you guys are probably used to it. That's just who I am, and I got to get a little better grasp on these things. So, you know what? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to tackle some veterans again. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, we are back. That's right. This is the Stafford Voice, and I am... Okay, I'm your host, Daniel Stafford. I did it again. Oh my goodness. I'm remembering to at least hit the microphone button this week. Okay, give me some credit. If the worst thing I'm doing is remembering to transition from the little break graphic over to the on-air graphic that you're watching right now, then, okay, I'm pleased with it, okay? It matters. Producers matter. Okay? Look, for a one-man band, this show does okay. It really does. I'm actually surprised. Maybe one of these days soon, I will sit down and put together a video of what really goes into this show and all of the bells and whistles that are flashing before my eyes while I'm actually trying to talk. And remember to hit the microphone button there and the mute button there and the transition button, and make sure that you'll get an idea. I'll have to put a video together. It is insane. It really is insane. Okay, it's not half as insane as our veterans, living and deceased, are not being treated right. Just throwing it out there right now. And I'm just like you, I'm sick and tired of the fact that this remains an issue. What, honestly, will it take to finally start treating veterans with the respect they deserve? Do we have to wait until they're dead? Or even then, will we just treat them like garbage? Okay, not so much garbage, because at least the garbage gets picked up and taken out instead of getting piled up in the corner. Where's all the fine print in this? Well, the fine print is not what Trump said about those suffering from PTSD recently. It's about the veteran corpses piling up in the facilities and left to rot. It's not about Trump saying veterans with PTSD aren't quote-unquote strong and can't quote-unquote handle it. It's not about how Trump got 4 deferments from being drafted into the Vietnam War. The fine print is this. The VA hasn't done anything to improve one single thing. They even conducted a study proving how bad they suck. Waiting lists are still long. Messages to the unmonitored suicide hotline are still not getting answered. And now this. Bodies of deceased veterans are piling up in VA hospital morgues. That's right. Some as long as 2 months. Look, claim or unclaimed, they deserve some damn respect. And bravo to Katie Pavlich for hitting on this over at townhall.com, and she reported this. An Illinois Veterans Affairs hospital already under fire for excessive wait times, festering black mold, and kitchen cockroaches faces a new shame. I'm just going to stop you right there. And if I ever make a trip to Illinois, I am admitting right here on this show, if I ever go to Illinois and I am within driving distance of this particular Veterans Affairs hospital, whoever it is that's in charge, I would love to issue a throat punch. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a flippin' homeless person. I don't give one crap if you are forced to be around black mold and cockroaches crawling around in a kitchen. That is a whole nother level of shame, owned and operated by our federal government. Let's continue, shall we? The bodies of dead patients left unclaimed in the morgue for up to 2 months without proper burial, whistleblower documents allege. Now, the whistleblower, whose identity is not being revealed for fear of retaliation, complained last month to the VA's Inspector General about the Edward Hines Jr. VA hospital's handling of veterans' remains in cases where families have not come forward to claim the body. The complaint singled out Christopher Wertjes, Chief of Patient Administrative Services, saying, quote, "The Chief of PAS, Patient Administrative Services, has the funds available, yet has no sense of urgency to lay the veteran to rest." I am restraining from just ending the show and driving to Illinois right now and issuing either a throat punch or a flippin' punch to the face. Our government has funds set aside, and we know that they're out blowing money trying to figure out what kind of art pieces we can hang in a VA hospital instead of giving a proper burial to someone who gave it their all. I'm going to continue. Quote, Hines VA, the hospital that has been overrun with cockroaches and mold and left vets waiting for care for months on secret wait lists, has reached a new low in the treatment of our veterans. We got ahead of ourselves. We have to back up. Senator Mark Kirk, Republican from Illinois, whose office also received the complaint along with emails, is now waiting for Wertjes' firing, and in a statement slammed the hospital located in the western suburbs of Chicago over its recent history of controversies. Now, let's get back to what he was saying. Quote, Hines VA, the hospital that has been overrun with cockroaches and mold and left vets waiting for care for months on secret wait lists, has reached a new low in the treatment of our veterans. This was in an interview that he gave to Fox News. And he continued by saying, we now have reports of bodies being left to decompose in the morgue for months on end. Unquote. At least somebody cares in Washington. Senator Kirk is the chairman of the Appropriations Committee on Military Construction and Veteran Affairs, and last week he introduced a bill called the Respectful Interment for Passing Veterans Act. The bill would require expeditious and respectful provision of burial and funeral services for indigent, deceased veterans and remains of deceased veterans that are unclaimed. Senator Kirk, thank you, but please put some pressure on these people. I really wanted to call him an F-tard. Please put some pressure on this issue and finally start putting some resolve to it. God, nobody deserves to be around a hospital that has black mold in it and has cockroaches crawling around in the kitchen where they are producing food to feed to some of our nation's finest. I am beyond disappointed. I am beyond appalled that this crap continues to go on. Maybe we should pressure the government. That's what we need to do. If you're listening to this show, I want you to call your congressman, call your senators, call your representatives. I don't care who you have to call. Get on Facebook, get on Twitter, blow their damn phones up, and let's get them to do another study to admit how bad they suck. How many studies is it going to take? 5? 10 more? Ugh. On a much lighter note, I say lighter note, but this is pretty not so light of a note in our house and here in the studio. But October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and many of you already know that this will mark the 12th year of my mother's passing from breast cancer. She battled for 9 years. It was not a pretty battle at all. So here is my plea with you for now. It's 1 month out of the year that we give attention to breast cancer awareness. Men, I'm especially talking to you. Please, I plead with you, please check yourself. I don't care what some dingbat on Twitter says, saying that the American Cancer Society doesn't suggest that you do a self-breast exam. You know what? That's how my mom found her lump that eventually took her life. She found it by performing a self-breast exam. I know many other friends and very, very close family acquaintances that are basically family to me, who have found their own lumps by doing a self-breast exam that eventually led to a diagnosis of breast cancer. I plead with you, please, men, women, check yourselves. If you're married, check your spouse. Women, check your husband. Men, check your wives. If you only do it once a year, bravo. Please, I plead with you, check yourselves. Men, you've got other stuff to check. You know, your little Christmas balls that just kind of hang there for decoration. You get them out every now and then. You know what I'm talking about. Check them little puppies too. And thank you. My wife just whispered over to me that you need to get a mammogram. A lot of the times, let me say this. We will cover this later this week. Actually, we have it scheduled to hit Wednesday, October 5th. Wednesday, October 5th, my wife and I are planning to sit down and talk about some of this stuff. It will get posted over on the YouTubes. I invite you to watch that as soon as it gets uploaded. Hopefully, my only takeaway is this. Check yourselves. If you're not comfortable checking yourself or you don't know, please call a doctor and ask them to show you. Ask them to perform one, and while they're doing it, explain what to look for, explain how to check it, have them explain to you what it feels like so you know. Speaking from personal experience, and my wife will testify to this, when her lump was, when the doctor found hers, she honestly didn't know that's what it would feel like. So, if you're of age and you need to get a mammogram, make October that time of the month, or that time of the year to schedule your mammogram. But please, I plead with you to just check yourselves. Women, pressure your husbands to not only check you, but check themselves and check their dangly bits. Have them check their giblets and make sure that everything is kosher. Oh, wow, there were so many jokes there. We're not even going to go into it. But again, I digress. You know what? I'm paying attention to the time, and I'm realizing we're on schedule. As long as we transition right here, right now, and we do this, we got this. Okay. Profiles in history. As Major General of the Suffolk County Militia, he Let's just start that all over again. Because I did it again. I forgot to hit the stupid transition so you guys had something to look at instead of this mug that you call a show host. Okay, profiles in history. As Major General of the Suffolk County Militia, he learned that the British had ships in Gardiner's Bay off Long Island, New York, and were planning on invading to get supplies. He led his men to the beach to meet them, and without a single shot, the British withdrew. William Floyd was born in Brookhaven, Long Island, New York, on December 17th, 1734. His family were very prosperous farmers, and around the age of 20, Floyd would take over the large estate as both of his parents passed away literally within 2 months of one another. Around the year 1769, he married his wife Hannah, who would later die on May 16, 1781. Now, William was a fairly wealthy man by the time of the Revolution. While he didn't participate much in the debates as a delegate at the Continental Congress, he was consistent in his support of the Revolution. In fact, he abstained from voting for independence, as did the other New York delegates. But after New York finally gave its approval, Floyd happily signed the Declaration of Independence on August 2nd, 1776. Now, during the year 1776, while Floyd was at Congress, the British invaded Long Island and seized his estate. His family quickly fled to Middleton, Connecticut, and the company of horsemen using his home as a barracks would occupy it for the rest of the Revolution, lasting nearly 7 years. This left him and his family with no home and no source of income while they were there. His wife would never see the Long Island home again. In 1784, Floyd would marry Joanna Strong, and during the same year he began acquiring land on the western frontier of New York along the Mohawk River. William was elected to the first United States Congress in 1789, where he would serve only one term until March 3rd, 1791. This was just the start of his dabbling in politics. In 1795, Floyd ran for lieutenant governor of New York with Robert Yates on the Democratic-Republican ticket, but was defeated by Federalist John Jay and Stephen Van Rensselaer. Oh, French names. Gotta love them. Serving as an elector in 1800, he voted for Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, and in 1804, he voted for Thomas Jefferson and George Clinton. By now, William Floyd was hit with the pioneering bug. In 1803, at the age of 68, he left his Long Island estate in the hands of his son. Along with his wife and children, they would move to his new lands along the Mohawk River, building an almost identical home on the new property. In fighting for the Declaration of Independence, William Floyd lost a home but gained a nation. He fell ill after being strong in health for the next 18 years, and after 4 years of sickness, he calmly folded his arms, closed his eyes, and passed away on August 4th, 1821, in Westernville, New York. And that is this week's Profiles in History. So, I remembered to hit the transition that time. Bravo! Woo! Okay. So, as you can see, as we start taking a look at those who signed the Declaration of Independence, we really get a sense of not only who they were, but what they fought for and what they were willing to give up. I mean, this guy, here he was, wealthy landowner. He's out there working for the people. And the British come by, scare off his family, seize his land. He has basically no means of income and starts all over again. It's just incredible Incredible the amount that these men and women, because we can't forget about their wives. Their wives were incredible women to be able to endure what they endured. It's mind-blowing. Oh, not as mind-blowing. That's right, not as mind-blowing as Who Said That? Because that sound you just heard, and if you're on YouTube's, I forgot to unmute it. Golly, I'm not, in all of its disgusting glory, the show is still going on. Anyway. Before I lose track of where I was, as disgusting as some of these things, like talking about the VA. I mean, we've spent this show talking about the things in the fine print. We could have featured a couple of other things, We could have featured Rudy Giuliani saying how Trump is basically a genius for, figuring out a way to evade taxes all those years. We could have highlighted numerous people. But in regards to keeping it in line with the fine print and keeping it in line with how we traditionally do Who Said That? And if you're new to the show, Who Said That is our final segment of the show where it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, a conservative. It doesn't matter. If you say something completely stupid, removing all doubt that you are stuck on stupid, well, we're just going to highlight it and we're going to make fun of you for it. And this week is an absolute jewel. So, without further ado, check it.
And the Wells Fargo scandal sheds light on another threat to consumers that we have to address. When the scam's victims, people like you and me, who had accounts there, tried to sue, they were shocked to learn there was a provision in the very fine print of their contracts that kept them from going to court to sue the bank for being cheated. Instead, they are forced into a closed-door arbitration process without the important protections that you get in a court of law. We are not going to let corporations like Wells Fargo use these fine print gotchas to escape accountability. And in fact, this is now common practice across a lot of industries, from nursing homes that mistreat seniors, to for-profit colleges that defraud students. Who reads all that fine print? I don't.
Okay. Who reads all that fine print? Okay, admittedly, Hillary Clinton doesn't read the fine print. And at least we know why she didn't know what that little C meant in all those emails. Because I think that was in the fine print at some point. Okay, gotcha! It was the fine print! Okay, anyway. Seriously. Checking the time. We're almost done. But seriously. At that level, whatever level Hillary Clinton is on, she knows to read the fine print. I guarantee you, an army of lawyers reads the fine print for her. The last thing you want to do is strain her granny's eyes. And I mean, have you seen the size, the thickness of those glasses? They're like something you get at a clown store. I mean, seriously. I mean, they're bad. I mean, look, I wear glasses, and sometimes I feel like they're pretty thick, but because when you start sweating and they slide down your nose, and man, my wife's glasses, they're thicker than mine. They're like 3 or 4 times as thick. I'm kidding. But Grandma Clinton's glasses, oh my God, those things are a mile thick. The average person could pick those up and be able to read the fine print 5 miles away. They're that bad. I mean, NASA wanted to borrow them because they can see the Milky Way. It's not the Milky Way in the candy machine. We're talking the one out there in like the stars out in the galaxy, and oh my God. Listen, the fact that she comes out there and says she doesn't read the fine print, and really, I mean, who cares? Who really does read the fine print? If you care at all about anything, you're going to read the fine print. We've covered issues all night long that had fine print that went along with them, and that's what we reported on, was the fine print details. We could have easily sat here and talked about Trump, or talked about, heaven forbid, talked about Clinton, or any of that crap. No, there are real issues out there. Real issues that affect you and I, that affect the normal people of the world, not the slippery elite like Clinton and Trump. They don't follow the same rules you and I do. They don't. Matter of fact, a lot of the times the fine print doesn't even apply to them. At least that's what they think. But when you hold their feet to the fire, and you call them out on it, you're the bad guy. And with that, that's all the time we have for this week. And God willing, the Stafford Voice, your host, Daniel Stafford, will be back next week. You can, yes, I know, you can follow me over on the Twitters, at Stafford Voice. You'll be able to look me up on the Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats, the YouTubes. Please make sure you subscribe on the YouTubes and be alerted, and make sure you hit that little alert button that tells you whenever we post a new vlog or anything else, or when this show goes live. Do yourself a favor. Do that. Also, share it with your friends if you want, with your family as well. Wherever you're at, it's as easy as searching for the title of the show, The Stafford Voice. Wherever you're at. The Googles, no matter what. Also, our email address is just as easy. If you want to keep things a little more to yourself, you can email your questions, your comments, or concerns to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Now, I do, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank you so much for your time. And until next week, thanks, and God bless.